how to buy your first investment property. I'm not a real estate guru trying to sell you a course. I get nothing out of this. So I'm just going to tell you the straight facts, and that's it. That's what you're here for. Facts on how to actually buy your first deal. This isn't going to generate you millions of dollars on your first deal. This is merely a first step to financial freedom. Buying one property first. I always say do one deal first and go to scale and buy 2, 3, 4, 5 properties. But you do one deal first because you're going to learn so much through doing one deal first than you will buying 5 or 6 at a time. Step number 1 is find a deal. Well, Zillow has tons of listings that have been up there for a really long time. You decide. It could be 6 months, 8 months, a year, however long. Look for realtors that like to do deals with investors, because what you're looking to do is find a distressed homeowner that's been, maybe they've had people come in and try to buy their house, maybe they've had lowball offers, whatever. You're looking for properties that have been on Zillow for a really long time, and those are the people that you want to reach out to. Step number 2 is funding the deal. Assuming you don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to invest to buy a real estate deal, or to take out a hard money loan, or finance a deal, or whatever the case may be, you want to use a tactic called sub 2, which is subject to. So subject to is essentially buying the house subject to the existing mortgage. So they can have an existing mortgage on there, say it's $200,000. You take over that mortgage, make payments for them. Maybe they're in distress, they're in foreclosure. You bring money to the table for them to bring them out of foreclosure, and then you make the monthly payments. There's been a lot of sub 2 deals going on now because of the way that, so many loans are at 1, 2, 3% mortgages, and that's really easy to get a sub 2 deal done because somebody wants to move out, they don't want to sell their house, but they want the cash flow off of that sub 2 deal to be able to subsidize another property or whatever the case may be. So buying a house subject to the existing mortgage is really important. Or if it's paid off in full, you can make the owner now the bank. You don't need to have a bank to do a deal. Everybody thinks you need to go to the bank and do that. Well, what if the house was completely paid off and the owner just wants cash flow? He just wants out of the property. So now you can make him the bank, and now you pay him. His only risk is if you default, which is the same as the bank, he has all the same rights and all the same things that he can do as a bank as well. So buying a house subject to is a great way to get a property for next to nothing or very little money out of pocket. The second thing you're going to want to do is underwrite the deal. Expenses versus income. So the expenses are pool, if there's a pool, landscaping, if there's some landscaping, a mortgage or a loan payment, an HOA fee, there's property management fees, which we'll talk about in a minute when we're talking about property management, because you should be paying yourself at least a property manager fee. You're also going to want to build up a fund available for deferred maintenance, which is usually air conditioning. Every summer here in Arizona, we have air conditioning that go out, things like that, a refrigerator that breaks, or an appliance that needs to be fixed, or whatever the case may be. So you're going to want to build up a certain amount of funds available for that. And as far as the income goes, you're going to want to look at a website called, what I use a lot is Rentometer, which is essentially you can Google your house, or you can input your address, get a reasonable rate of what it should rent for. And then of course on top of that, as far as income goes, you're going to want to have, if you're going to have your tenants pay for the pool or the landscaping maintenance or the HOA fees or whatever that may be, you want to take that into account when looking at the income as well. Closing the deal. Make sure that you work with a title company that understands at least sub 2 deal structure, and they're able to understand how that works, that the person that you're buying the house from is now going to be the bank. They're going to review the contracts, make sure everything is as it should be, and close the deal. Now let's manage the deal. So knowing that this is probably your first real estate deal, you're going to want to self-manage your property versus hiring an outside property manager. So when you're self-managing, you're going to want to pay yourself a property manager fee. They usually charge between 8 and 10%. So if you are looking at a house that rents for $3,000, you're going to want to pay yourself about $300 right off the top. And so you're going to want to make sure that all of your expenses, your pool, your landscaping, your mortgage, and everything takes that into account. So you have your income, which is about $3,000 depending on the market, depending on where you're at. Some places it's only $1,500. You want to make sure that the expenses do not go over the income and you have a nice buffer there. So when you're managing it, self-managing it, you're going to want to get an app. There's apps like DoorLoop, Propertyware. There's tons of apps available to help you manage your rental properties. You're going to want to find an app that does the screening for your tenants, and you're going to want to make sure that you have good tenants. It makes owning rental properties easy and effortless. You don't want to have bad tenants. If you have bad tenants, you have bad property. They're pains in the butt to manage. So find an app that'll help you screen the property, screen the tenants. Find an app that'll help you manage payments. A lot of people like to automate payments, whether it be through a credit card or a debit card or a bank account. You know, who's gonna pay those fees? Are you gonna pay those 2% processing fees for the credit cards, or do the tenants pay the fees? How is that gonna happen? You also want an app that's gonna automate a lot of your systems. Automations include like monthly reminders to pay the rent, you know, when rent is due, when it's past due, if they're going to charge fees, you know, if you have late fees into your lease agreement, things like that, really going to help you manage the property. Make sure you have a way that tenants can log in and see their accounts. Make sure that there's apps that'll help you manage the maintenance issues that pop up and things like that. So once you have those automations and everything is done, then you're going to collect cash flow. You want to make at least 10% to 20% on your first deal. Renting a property for say $3,000, you should be all in with your expenses and everything for about $2,500. So you can make about $500 a month, because that's going to be your buffer, because that's going to be for your deferred maintenance, that's going to be for all of these things. So you want to sock some money away to maintain your air conditioning units, maintain all of these things, and you're going to want to have all of those things taken care of. So this is just the first step to getting your first real estate rental property. Leave a comment below, and if you have any questions, or reach out to us. If you've got a few extra $100,000 and you don't want to manage your property, reach out to us and you can buy into our portfolio.